Good morning, everyone. I imagine you all sitting on a boat or the beach like this, enjoying your summer. Um, while it may not be true, it certainly isn't true of me. I'm going to keep imagining it's like this. And that you have your little evidence based book down here under an umbrella somewhere, and you occasionally go out and do an assignment. So, anyway, I hope you're enjoying your summer. And I think the class is going well. We've got some great responses this week in our topic. I did want to review a few things, however. The first one was in regards to sensitivity and specificity. And most of you appear to have this down and understand it, but I just wanted to maybe provide a little clarity for those of you that are still maybe struggling with it. So if you get this and you aren't having a problem, go ahead and skip forward, but a couple of you might want to read this or just take some notes here. But sensitivity is the ability of the test to identify correctly who has a disease or injury. And this sensitivity is reported in a percentage that you've all seen. And so the higher the value, the greater the sensitivity of the test. And we've been looking at special tests for these assignments. So we're looking for, can it predict a true positive test, or does it accurately tell us a true positive test? So sensitivity measures how often a test correctly generates a positive result for people who have the condition that's being tested for. We also call this a true positive rate. A test that's highly sensitive will flag almost everyone who has the, in this case, injury, and not generate very many false negative results. So, for example, if we have a 90% sensitivity with a special test, that special test will correctly identify positive results for 90% of people who have the injury. So if we look at Speed's test, and let's say it has a 90% sensitivity, then if you have a biceps tendinopathy, then 90% of the people that tested that have it, this test will pick it up. Speeds will pick it up. So, but it will also return a negative, a false negative, for 10% of the people who have the injury, which really isn't that many. And certainly, if we use different special tests, this will probably be picked up. So, it's going to tell us who's got an injury, positively identify it. Specificity, then, is the ability of the test to identify those who do not have the disease. So if we have a high specificity, that particular test will correctly rule out almost everyone who doesn't have the disease, okay, or injury, and it won't generate many false positives. We want to rule it out in injuries so that you don't treat it if you don't have to. So our example is a test with 90% specificity will correctly return a negative result for 90% of the people who don't have the disease, but will return a positive result or a false positive for 10%. So sensitivity and specificity have their strengths. Ideally, we have a special test that is high in both sensitivity and specificity. But certainly we can, if one's high in one, it can add some valuable information to our evaluation. So hopefully that adds a little bit of clarity for some of you. The other thing I wanted to comment on was that in the assignment that you did, you were looking up all these special tests and you were coming up with sensitivity and specificity. And because you can't see what each other wrote on these, I wanted to let you know that different authors were giving significantly different sensitivity and specificity percentages. Or you get these ranges that were just like crazy all over the place, like Hawkins Kennedy. We have a 62 to 92% with a specificity of 25 to 100%. Well, that's just all over the board. So it's hard to evaluate if you're going to want to use that test or how helpful it is for you. So just know that sometimes you might get into a discussion, or there might be some research that says that the specificity of or sensitivity of a particular test is higher than what maybe you've read, but it's because different authors are going to be given different information, which kind of lends into the ambiguity of the special tests and how do we decide which ones we're going to rely more heavily on. And then the forum was really interesting to read your answers. I enjoyed that. I commented on each of yours just to give a little bit of feedback and my thoughts. And what I thought was interesting throughout is that nobody has said that they have heard preceptors or other clinicians talk about sensitivity and specificity of special tests in the clinic. And maybe it's happening and you just didn't think to comment on it, but I'm kind of guessing that maybe it isn't happening. And surely it does not happen. It hasn't happened for me when I was in the clinic and I was not looking at sensitivity and specificity of special tests to help me to know, well, this test was positive, but this was negative, so what is this really telling me, and which one should I put more weight into? So I hope after doing this assignment that it makes you think, well, which special tests are more helpful than others, and that you can share that information with your peers and or students that come and work with you, and you can bring up that discussion and explain it to them. The reason that maybe you use a Lockman's over an anterior drawer, and you can use the term sensitivity is to explain why you do that. So anyway, good discussion. Okay, for this next module, let's see if we can get over to it and take a peek at it here. Okay, so this next module, we're going into looking at some more tests to evaluate research. And we've got two categories of research, diagnostic research and prognostic research. So diagnostic research is looking at the accuracy or how do we diagnose injury, and then prognostic is related to treatment or outcomes of our treatment. So a few chapters, they're pretty short, so I think that will be okay. I would use this article as a reference when you get to the assignment where you need to perform this appraisal. And then this reading is helpful for your reflection, which is, for the first time, we have kind of a different reflection in this course. So it'll be fun to read those. Again, these readings are additional if you need help. But most of this material is in the book. But if you're having trouble evaluating using a particular test, then you can go to these references and it can provide a little more information. So this week, the forum is related to correlated variables. So I'm asking you to come up with 3 positive and 3 negative correlations. And just note that in this that I ask that I want 3 positive, 3 negative correlations that are not causative. So the occurrence of one does not necessarily cause the outcome or the occurrence of the second. So have fun with these. They don't have to be related to athletic training, but don't use the ones in the book either. Okay, the big assignment that I think is going to take the most time this week is the relevant question assignment. So there's many components of this. So finding for different types of articles. You're coming using those articles, and they're going to perform a worksheet on it, which is a preliminary review to tell you if if the research is good or not, to have a screening, and then a secondary worksheet that goes into a little more detail in regards to importance and value of those articles. Then you'll be creating your own clinical question. This might be a time where you start to think about what you really want to research for the next 2 semesters. What topics are you interested in, and start to use that as your question, and start to be using the articles that you find as part of your research already. Um, Definitely it can change, so don't get paralyzed by the thought of, I got to come up with my PICO question. Um, it can change and morph, but if you have something you're interested in, let's start using it for the assignments. Um, and then you need to find your supporting articles and do your worksheets on those. The worksheets, you have a link into those, so those should be fairly easy to access. The last assignment is a pretty quick one. I don't think it'll take you too long. The last written assignment here, you're just going to find one journal article pertaining to prognostic research and do the appraisal, um, the CASP appraisal, which is for prognostic research articles, and see how you do. So, and then there's a reflection question, which again, as said earlier, is a different kind of format and type than what we've done before, but I think you'll enjoy it. So, I will post Module 4 later in the week, but if you have any questions, let me know. Otherwise, keep up the great work, you guys.